All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another video in Introduction to American Politics. Today, we are going to talk about foreign policy. So, what are the tools that are primarily used with regard to foreign policy? Well, there are two general categories of tools. One is economic pressure. And it can be done through the mechanism of economic sanctions, which is to prevent individuals or organizations to to engage in some sort of economic activity with the country. And soft power refers to just diplomatic ways of making deals or not making deals with other countries with regard to economics, and to try to, for example, form coalitions of countries in order to instill economic pressure on an antagonist. And the second uh, category is military action. And this is the organized use of deadly force by a government. It is the most risky tool, and it is the most expensive tool, most costly tool with regard to both resources and human life. So, both of the elected branches, the presidency and the Congress, have a role in foreign policy. Now, the president, as head of state and commander in chief, has the most predominant role in foreign policy. He represents the US abroad, and he's also the head of the armed forces and ultimately makes the final determination as to whether or not the United States will engage in military action. Now, he also leads his party, and consequently, he can set the agenda with regard to his party in Congress regarding foreign policy and how Congress will react to decisions of foreign policy. And he can often use foreign policy issues uh, to turn his own approval ratings and gauge whether or not an action with regard to foreign policy will boost or temper his poll numbers. So, in this way, domestic current concerns also play a major role. Congress. Though the president is the commander in chief of the armed forces, only Congress has the power to declare war. And as I've noted before, it frequently authorizes the president uh, to use force. Now, there are other pieces of legislation with regard to this. There's the War Powers Act, which was decided restriction on the executive during the Nixon administration in response to his conduct during the Vietnam War. The Congress also approves budgets for defense and foreign policy. They approve ambassadors and other bureaucratic officials with regard to foreign service. The Senate also approves treaties and oversees foreign policy bureaucracy. So Congress actually has a major regulatory role in terms of foreign policy and can place checks on the president, even though the president is seen as the primary driver of American foreign policy. Now, next, these are the unsung heroes of government, the bureaucracy. These are interesting people because they're not elected. They're often career officials, people who have spent their entire professional careers uh, in administrative jobs, largely in the Department of Defense and the Department of State, and they play a crucial role in foreign policy. They play a crucial role in economics of foreign policy. The Defense Department prepares and operates the military. And often these career officials are experts on how to maximize efficient use of military resources. And then the State Department is in charge of diplomatic efforts. And many officials in the State Department often specialize in certain aspects of foreign policy, sometimes with regard to geography. You will have people who are experts on Russia, China, and so forth, and people who are experts on different aspects of foreign policy, military engagement, diplomacy, with regard to certain issues and things like that. But there can also be domestic pressures on foreign policy, not only on the president, but in Congress as well. Public opinion can influence foreign policy decision making. During the second term of President Barack Obama, there were many calls for military intervention in Syria. And you have to remember, we were just coming off of these massive military interventions in Iraq and Afghanistan. There was little public appetite for further military engagement. And so the Obama administration asked Congress for authorization to use military force in Syria, and they were hesitant to give it to them. What ended up happening was Barack Obama engaged in a very limited response to the crisis in Syria. And this was largely because public opinion did not approve of further military intervention in the Middle East, regardless of the wisdom in it. Lobbyists can also target the White House. There are lobbying organizations that do advocate on behalf of better or sometimes worse relations with certain countries. And they can sway the government officials, not only in the White House, but in Congress as well. And then finally, in terms of how domestic concerns can affect foreign policy, the United States has military bases all over the country. And a lot of them are known to actually be superfluous, excess, serving no strategic value. However, it is very difficult to close them because members of Congress that represent districts that have military bases on them can object to them closing. Well, why would they object to their closing of military bases within their district? Well, it's because military bases bring jobs and they bring commerce. Let me show you this video that demonstrates just that.